On this map, the CSA has the 13th Georgia and they have the 6th Louisiana. Both units are equipped with the pattern infield M1853 and the Springfield M1855, both using Minet ball. On this map, the Union is fighting with the 1st US Sharpshooters using the Sharps Infantry Rifle M1859 using Minet ball, and they are fighting with the 2nd Wisconsin Infantry Regiment with both of their companies using the Lorenz M1854 and the Springfield M1861, with the M1854 using compression ball and the 1861 using Minet ball. Alright guys, so this video is going to be going over Hooker's Push. That is a skirmish map and the Antietam rotation. It is a Union attack map, and on this map, the Union has a 19% ticket advantage. That is the same as it is on Eastwood Skirmish, which was covered in the prior video if you haven't seen that already. On this map, there's a lot more complexity to how the Union and the CSA should approach this map than I would argue there's for Eastwood Skirmish. There's a lot of things to consider on this map, so what I have drawn up here is all the relevant points that we'll be taking a look at. This black line at the bottom is the snake fence along the cornfield. The Union approaches from the cornfield, and it takes like 3 or 4 minutes out of spawn. I recommend you don't leave spawn as a CO or a private until you understand that there's a plan. You should always be planning, especially on this map. But if you're not coordinating out of spawn, you're really setting yourself up for not a good time, and it's going to reflect on the round. And especially at high population COs, you have to remember that you're impacting the perception of the game for 175 other people. And if you're going to do poorly and not care, well, what kind of impression does that set for the game? So we're going to start with the left approach. Okay guys, so while considering how to approach the left flank, we need to also consider what's not seen in this photo. On this map, the Union does have 2 batteries. This is Battery Matthews. Battery Matthews is the battery I recommend you use. I do not really care much about the other battery, but what you should know is directly off to its right. It's going to be relatively the same fuses, but I definitely prefer Battery Matthews due to the high ground it already has, and I recommend you use the Parrot guns. Using this line as a barrier right here. To the left is the Parrot guns. To the right is 12 pounders. Parrot guns have more ammo, and the fuses are going to be different on the Parrot guns compared to the 12 pounders. We're starting over here on the left. Okay, so we're going to be looking kind of at the angle of the corner of the cornfield out into the main battlefield. It's kind of hard to see. Right on this green line is the crest of this Union Defilade, and if you don't know what that defilade looks like from the Union perspective once you get out of the cornfield, here's what it looks like. As you can see, it is very tall, extremely tall. You can't see past it, and I'm still slightly above the head of what the soldier would be seeing out of the cornfield. But here's the thing. Here's what it looks like if the CSA were standing behind it. But here's what it looks like if you're standing on top of it right here. On all skirmish maps, the defender is going to spawn under point, and this is the CSA point right here. They're going to spawn, well, under this diamond. Like on the Eastwood Skirmish, the points of interest, the battlefield on Hooker's Push, is all right next to where the CSA spawns. They're going to beat you everywhere. They're going to send 1 to 2 companies, usually they're larger companies, to occupy this hill. And as you saw earlier, the hill has a really good defilade. CSA standing on top of here with their 2 companies, they can see the Union flags coming from miles away, so they can start putting lead down range. So the Union, having 2 infantry companies and 1 Sharps company, has to walk around 4 minutes, and they're already outnumbered when it comes to flags. The CSA has 4 infantry companies. It takes 5 seconds to spawn on a flag, and if they evenly disperse those men around their flags, they're always going to outspawn the Union. And the Union has to crowd, especially on higher populations, tons of people just on 2 flags, because the Sharps is only 16 rifles, right? So the Union not only has a spawn disadvantage in terms of spawn time, but they have to, uncontested, come through this cornfield while any CSA company is up here already shooting. There's some other things you need to consider. So if we go back to the overhead, the CSA has been doing something along the lines of this. They'll have 1 or 2 or even 3 companies sitting in the back of this defilade, with 1 company kind of off on itself. But why is this company off by itself? So they're going to expect the infantry to usually come up somewhere on the left. And usually they're going to go for that defilade because defilades are good. Defilades provide cover. They provide a good rallying point that offers some semblance of protection. Union, with CSA expecting to approach here, is going to start getting shot at already. What the CSA is usually hoping for is that the Union companies and Sharps, if the Sharps are together with the Union, so let's draw Sharps. Just let's pretend Sharps is with the Union. They reach this fence. The CSA immediately, already having shoot at them, is going to start engaging them, right? But remember, there's 4 CSA companies. So in some iterations, the CSA likes to, once the engagement starts, the CSA is going to send a company up and over into the cornfield, which they can do to an extent. It is going to be out of bounds, but if they sprint down this fence into the cornfield, they're going to try to get you on the side. This could be 1 infantry company, or this could be 2, it could even be 3. Probably could be 1 or 2. What they're going to try to do then is they're going to try to tie you up after that 4-minute walk you just had while you're under fire, have you worry about your side, and then these companies are going to try to collapse on top of you. Union, being worried about this, has started to do this. They usually try to go back a little bit and start to reform. Here's the issue in that. As we already know, CSA can see you. CSA sees you coming. So CSA knows where you're going to reform. CSA knows how you're going to attack. CSA knows where you're going to reform. If you reform close enough to this fence, remember this is the fence, what is CSA going to do? They're going to charge you. They're going to wipe your flags. They can charge that so easily. And this is where the fatal flaw of Union strategy has come in response to new strategy. Once Union gets in that first engagement, which is going to be very quick, the flags usually on order of the COs, or the COs themselves, will spend so much time reforming off the fence because they think they're safe out of bounds, but a smart CSA team is just going to charge you and wipe your flags after they win that engagement. And then you have to walk another 4 minutes, and that timer is going down, right? You only have 45 minutes to attack. It takes 4 minutes to get up there. You get wiped. Now you're losing another 4 minutes of walking, so your time is really, really bad at that point. Parrots can hit that left hill. And if you don't remember, left hill. For each of the 3 Parrot guns, the rough fuses are going to be, for the left CSA Defilade, it's going to be negative 0.01 as your elevation, and it's going to be 260 yards range. Now guys, this is going to be the rough lineup. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a tree trunk right around here that represents the top of the hill, and you want to aim slightly to the right of it. And if you do it right, keyword is if you do it right, you set your elevation of negative 0.01, your range to 260. If you have all of the guns firing, this is what it's going to look like. So if you're at negative 0.01 and you know the CSA, the Union's telling you, the commanders are telling you that, or you can see them with your binoculars, that they're up on the top, lower your fuse by 5 yards, do 255, and start hammering it. It's hard to fight from right here. So coordinate with your artillery, let the artillery know what the fuse and elevation is, and even show them where to line up. It is so easy. It does not take that much time at all. So if the CSA is on this hill and you have your artillery already hitting it, your artillery is going to be hitting it as they advance. So they're going to be a little bit worried. Hell, that might even slightly solve the issue against a slightly more incompetent CSA team. They might end up falling back to these rocks, or they might even default to these rocks to an extent. You do see that sometimes. In fact, you actually see it a lot. Like I said, you might need to be worried about that one flanking company. What do you do once you get to this spot? You need to tell your men to stay close. You need to prevent what I call the snake. What is a snake? Newer players, and on the pubs in general, and even in regimental events a lot, I've seen this before. Instead of approaching as a line, what do teams do? They approach a position in a giant column. What is going to happen here, if you're playing against a stationary defender and you're approaching as a giant column, they're just going to keep shooting you as your men. So as your men get to this fence, they're going to continue being shot. And you're not going to have a much effective power because as people get here, they're being shot piecemeal. Teaching your men how to spawn, how to sprint to catch up, how to be right on top of you is going to be critical. And if you're a private, you need to be right on top of your CO on this map, or else this will happen to you and you're going to get wiped. I would not waste any time at all, assuming your artillery is doing its job. I recommend approach from here, go up and over, either get on their side and start shooting, provoke the charge, or you charge them. You need to force that melee quickly. The melee, for one, you don't want to be here losing the shooting battle and then end up getting wiped and having a terrible trade. If you can get mostly full strength, get on their side and force that melee, it won't be that bad of a trade. Okay, they're going to know you're coming. But if they're going to have that one flanking company out here, far away, or they have another one over here, well, you have a case where you have all your infantry versus, as well, again, infantry needs to be playing together as Union. You have this where you might have an isolated company or two or even three, and you're going to immediately outnumber them if you do this quickly and correctly. You need to get up and over, start shooting to their side, or force that melee instantaneously. Okay? And assuming artillery is being helpful already, the CSA might not even be here. But if they are, Artie's probably already been hitting them. If artillery starts hitting you, CSA, I wouldn't recommend staying up here anymore. If the Union's going to take the left flank, the Sharps needs to be with the Union. This needs to be a full team approach. Okay? Sharps needs to be with the Union here. I personally do not enjoy the right flank. I think the right flank is a very useless flank on this map. Now, if you're a Sharp CO and you find that the Union infantry is having an issue breaking out here because they're bad, well, what you could do is maybe you try to go out here with the Sharps and move quickly and try to just anchor CSA company and provoke movement. You could do that. Keep your distance and try to avoid getting wiped, but if you're trying to help infantry break out, you have to make the CSA know you're there. Say you do push the CSA off this hill. Union now has this point where the Union can start rallying, but the CSA, if they're smart, ideally CSA will probably end up being back here. They're going to end up using these hilltops as discussed earlier. If you don't remember, this is the left CSA Defilade. This is the center hill. And the center hill, in terms of the slope, the crest, it's more like this. It's more like that. The ideal CSA defense, in my opinion, looks something like this. Or more ideally like this. You're going to have two companies sit in this back defilade, and you're going to have two companies on this hill. A good Union team is going to get destroyed coming up the right flank, and that's why I recommend avoiding the right flank. Sorry, a bad Union team will. Since Union goes up the right flank, CSA has no real reason playing forward on their left flank, aka the Union right flank. So like, if you're a CSA CO, this is all flat ground. Don't be up here, right? Because if the Union, in the beginning, if you're up here, and say the Union approaches with one company, you're gonna have a really bad trade. You have a 20% deficit compared to them. Not only do they have probably more men than you if you are up here, but you're gonna get screwed. And at that point, even if you have decent artillery as CSA, once the Union starts shooting at you and you know you're outnumbered, you have to fall back all the way over here. They're gonna be shooting you in the back while you're running. You're gonna lose skirmishing and outline tickets. You don't want to do that. So I recommend CSA, if you do think the Union's coming up the right flank, which would be really dumb on their part, you stay back here. And hell, if they go up this way, if Union goes up on this side with their infantry or Sharps, and they stay up here, you have Battery Pogue right here. You have Battery Brockenborough, and what can they do? This is all flat ground. They can see everything. So the hill kind of blocks the Artie's viewpoint from this point on, right? So that hill we're talking about blocks their viewpoint. So CSA is gonna have to fuse over this hill to hit any targets over here from Pogue and Brockenborough rather. So, but anything over here is what I call no man's land. If you see Union going up this CSA, I recommend you keep using the top of this hill and shooting at them. But Artie, if you have one decent artilleryman over there, they're gonna get torn to shit. It is a terrible approach for Union. But the Union could also do the dumb thing when they don't know what to do. It's not necessarily dumb, it's just if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to do it anyway. They're going to try to go get Artie tickets on your artillery. If you're artillery and this happens, just don't spawn on Artie. There's two other batteries, right? There's Battery Jordan over here, which is only 2 guns, but there's alternatives there. If you know CSA Union's coming, they're going to try to wipe you. Don't just sit there and wait for yourselves to get wiped. You see them coming, you have plenty of warning. Just get out of there. You don't need to sit there. You don't. And if they're not going to get any tickets, all the Union's going to be doing over there is wasting their time. Okay? So if you're an officer and you know you're an Artie officer on CSA, you know Union's coming, just leave. Who cares if Union artillery has those spots? They're wasting their time. They need to be getting kills. Once this Union team has this left flank, I immediately recommend the Union start going up this left approach to the CSA hill on the left flank. That should be your goal, is to get over here to this left defilade on this back side of it. But what if there's what if the CSA team for some reason decides to group up here? This is really stupid. However, a lot of stupid things happen. Battery Matthews can also hit this spot with their parrots, and thankfully for you guys, I have the fuses on Matthews. This is so you can see that bush off in the distance. There's this bush cresting right over the cornfield. To hit it, you should have one gun aiming to the right of it, one gun middle of it, and one gun slightly on the left edge of it. And in this demonstration, and by the way, if you don't see it already, your range for this lineup is going to be 265 yards. So range 265, elevation negative 0.10. That's going to be the lineup right there. So keep in mind with where that bush is. That's what the explosion is going to look like on those rocks. So if you want to, if they're more back here, right? If they're more back here, you up your elevation just a, you up your range just a little bit, go like 270. You'll start hitting them here. Hell, if they're even more forward, you can adjust your range accordingly. This is where communication comes into play, guys. This is heavily going to be an artillery focused map. If you're not coordinating with your artillery as infantry or sharps, you're an idiot. You're going to lose the round as Union. And if you're CSA, I don't recommend you go up here at all. This is easy kills once the once Union takes that left defilade, because once Union takes that left defilade and your CSA CO, you're quickly going to realize that, hey, this is a bad spot. My team is falling back. I just lost that defilade, and now Union's there. They can just keep going up and shooting me here. I'm pretty much having no cover. And in high populations, guys, these rocks aren't cover. Rocks are pretty dumb because Artie can hit them. They're like an anchor. And in public play especially, it's kind of hard to get new players to move from these rocks because they view the rocks as cover. Why am I going to move out of cover? I'm not being killed, but really it's just an anchor. You're going to have a lot of issues moving people off it sometimes. So I would avoid it in high population from the get-go. I would focus on line infantry tactics. Hiding behind the rocks with 30 to 40 people, it's not it. It's not what you should be doing. So Union takes that left hill. Sharps can start pushing, or even Sharps can take these rocks after they handle the CSA, whatever CSA problems on there, and start focusing over here. So what the Union is going to want to do now is focus going up this left flank. If you're the CSA team, you cannot be letting Union walking up this flank without getting shot. Union should not be able to go up this flank uncontested at all. I recommend that if you're CSA and you know Union has to push up that left side, or you see them moving, you get your men on top of that hill, you spread them out in an open order skirmish order line, and you just start shooting. You shoot until you can't see them anymore. Just shoot them as they're approaching up here. They cannot be able to go up this. They should not be able to go up this flank without getting shot to shit. If they are, you're really hurting your team in the long run. So knowing this as CSA, use this high ground. Let the Union dig their own graves. Let them push up this flank. The Union should be pushing up this flank. It's not necessarily the worst if they're being shot at too. They still have a tick advantage, okay? But the worst thing CSA can do here is not take opportunities to get kills. If the enemy's moving, they're not shooting, right? And Union has a huge time issue on this map, and if they get wiped, it's really hard to come back from that. What should the Union do? If the Union's worried about being able to approach this left flank and they're playing against a good CSA team, and although I recommend they try, but they quickly realize that they can't, whether because to really good firepower or whatever it may be, what should the Union do? The left defilade is right here. So this is the crest of it, marked in green. CSA is going to stand behind it, right? So the view from that looks like this. So this is the top of that hill. Union is going to be approaching like so with their 2 infantry companies and ideally sharps. And this is a good idea for Union. Here's why. So you don't need to engage in an open field map in a closed order formations. what Union should do is they should utilize a formation called skirmish order. So this is an example of a skirmish order line. It is very simple. It's this long spread out line where every person has around 4 to 5 dots between each and every one of them. If you're doing this right, you won't have to worry about people dying much in skirmishing or out of line unless they are at either extreme of your line. In high population, it won't matter too much in my opinion, because most people are going to be trying to get kills as quick as they can. They're gonna be aiming towards the center of lines, okay? They're gonna be aiming towards the center, but skirmish order is very self-explanatory. If you're spread out by 5 dots between each and every person, like it was in that photo, going to be minimizing casualties. So doing so on the left flank as you're approaching this defilade is gonna minimize your casualties, and especially since as Union you have less flags than the enemy, it's going to help you get more spawns because not many people are dying, or less people rather are dying. It's a lot harder to hit a person in a skirmish order line than it is to hit a closed order formation, because everyone's going to be at the same spot, everyone's blobbed up, more and more people are going to die in closed order. Look at it as almost as a fire in advance. Don't just sprint up to the defilade and then make a line unless you know you can get there without taking that many casualties because the CSA is doing something wrong. But don't bank on that. If the CSA is playing right, they're going to be shooting you all the way up. So utilize more of a fire and advanced type of formation where you're utilizing skirmish order. And what you're going to then do, like any good player should, is you're going to coordinate with these guys. Battery Matthews again. As it turns out, Battery Matthews can also hit this defilade way over there. And I'm going to show you guys the lineup for that. All right, so this is the proper lineup to hit the backside of that defilade where CSAs can be standing if you're playing on a PARROT gun on Battery Matthews. I don't know if you guys can see it, but if we zoom in, you can see a bit of an increase in height, and there's a bush that's actually next to the defilade right in line with this cannon. This is gun 3, by the way. Doesn't really matter what gun you use as long as you're using a PARROT, because they're at this distance, they're all pretty much looking at the same angle. You can see that bush cresting over right there. That's what you're looking for. You're aiming pretty much at the center of that crest. So you might be wondering, well, this is a bit far back, right? Kind of. So the CSA is going to be more of shooting you like so if you're coming up the left flank as Union. So imagine you guys are stopping right here, as you should be, doing a skirmish order line, and sharps should probably be covering from here, not along the fence. The fence is out of bounds, so be up here in front of the fence if you're sharps, or sharps can go over here. Right? If you guys are spreading out doing skirmish order or a more open order formation, you should be good as Union. CSA, you should still be shooting them. You can keep going up and down that defilade and using cover to reload. However, it might start getting dire for you if you're a CSA CO if you don't have Battery Jordan rolled up. And if you don't remember, Battery Jordan is back here behind CSA. And Battery Jordan, you need to remember, CSA and Union, Battery Jordan can air burst and hit these positions right here. Or Battery Jordan, in my opinion, as they usually do, should roll up to the top of the CSA hill behind this position. So right here with this black line is the fishbowl, starts going uphill right here, and the CSA guns on Jordan should be right up on top of that, shooting this direction. But if Union is hitting this spot with artillery, as they should be, because it's a fairly easy lineup, then it might start getting hard for CSA to use this defilade without Union starting to squeeze more and more. Because each time that cannon air bursts you, people are going to be getting knocked down, people are going to be getting killed. Your fire rate is going to start slowing down. Okay? So if you're CSA and you find that to start happening to you, you're going to find that Union slowly and surely going to advance on this position. The CSA defense is going to look something like this. And to reiterate, the CSA has Battery Jordan back here. My opinion, they should roll the 2 guns up in their caissons to here, because they can hit over here on the top of this defilade and start hitting Union, or they can hit, and they should have time to do this while Union's advancing in the beginning of the map, by the way. This should be done before Union gets to the battlefield. They can hit the Union advance as they approach up here, which is another reason why the Union needs to be using skirmish order. If already hits you in your closed order and you're on hooker's push and your flag gets wiped and half your men get wiped in an already hit, what CSA is going to do, because CSA team, they're going to collapse on you. They know you're not going to be able to spawn in quick enough to even stop them. You're going to be fucked. So right when you get over this hill and you take this hill, guys, utilize skirmish order. If those 2 guns get on top of that hill, and they get one good hit on you on a closed order formation, it's over. CSA, a good CSA team, is going to see that, and they're going to start pushing your ass to get those flags down. Once your flags are down as Union, it gets really hard from there. So let's consider something. What if Union artillery sucks? Or what if they suck enough to the point where they can't really hit back here? Because these are harder shots to hit. Over here, not so much. It's a way easier lineup. So let's say the Union loses the left defilade. I mean, gets this left defilade over here. But Union's also worried about crossing up this field because of this artillery. At that point, I recommend you utilize skirmish order and you early cap. Let's recognize what early capping does. Early capping pauses that clock for you. And say you've been fighting for 10 minutes, 4 of those minutes for you approaching the fight, not even fighting yet, just trying to get up here. And now you're at battle ready, with 35 minutes left, or not even close to engage on either side. Early capping is going to pause the clock for you, and it's going to force the CSA to start making more offensive maneuvers. And if you utilize skirmish order and you have sharps and infantry, you should have the easier time fighting CSA. Even though this is a fishbowl, if you have sharps on either flank and you're spread out and you're close to Jordan, the guns of battery Jordan, they're not going to be able to kill you as effective as one might think, even with canister. So that's what the good thing about skirmish order does. Most of them are going to be dying in formation, and canister and shell is not going to kill all your line. If anything, per section of line, it's going to kill 1 or 2 people if it's done effectively at any spot they hit the line. If skirmish order is done properly, 1 or 2 people might die, and that's not a bunch in the long run. So if you're doing the skirmish order strat as Union, this is kind of the view you should expect if you're an infantry soldier, okay? This could be more what it's gonna look like. So you have your lines going off to your left and right, and the CSA is gonna be cresting these hills, either standing up there shooting at you using the military crest. They can kind of stand behind it and start fighting you. They also might have companies over here if you refuse to take the left defilade, which is why you would early cap. If you can't get up here quickly and get effective kills, this is why you would early cap. They're going to start shooting you, and they're going to argue, they're going to try to get control over point. The downside with this is that there is a way for the CSA to make you unable to do this as Union altogether, and I'm going to show you how. So I kid you not, all CSA needs to do if Union's out here on point doing the skirmish order, like so, and they have their sharks gonna be over here to the left or right, they might not even need to find them at all, because as it goes downhill to the rear side of the defilade towards the CSA spawn, this is still capped. So if you have a gun or 2 up here consistently putting fire down range onto the CSA lines with a canister or skirmish or shell, and they're getting 1 or 2 kills, the issue of skirmish order is that you're spread out to the point where there's going to be people on either of these extremes that are not on the cap point for Union. So what does that mean for you as CSA? Well, if they don't have enough people on cap, and you get all your men behind this defilade not even shooting, you can cap the point without the Union even able to fire at you, because you have point access behind this defilade. This is what I would recommend if you're playing as CSA. If you see Union do this, you could either, if you think you're just straight up better, you could skirmish order a CSA using the military crest. That means slightly behind the defilade, but still able to see the Union and just start shooting the shit out of them. Or you do as I just said, keep that clock going. You want that clock to keep going as a defender, okay? So cap that point. If Union's doing skirmish order, they're not going to be able to defend the entirety of point if they're doing skirmish order right, especially at high population. They're not going to be able to fit all those people onto point, and if they do, what's going to end up happening is Unions can be in closed order, and if you notice they're in closed order and they're capping, that should be even better for you as CSA. Get on top of this hill and start shooting the shit out of Union, because they're in closed order. You might have artillery guns already up here shooting at them. This is a potential situation where you can wipe the Union just by shooting and with 1 or 2 artillery guns, because they're desperate already for time saving. They're early capping, and if you wipe those flags and you cap instantly, they're probably gonna be at a ticket disadvantage, and they have to walk all the way back from spawn. So there is benefits to the early cap skirmish line, and there is drawbacks to it. Union, if you're doing the early cap skirmish order against a good CSA team, the early cap should literally just be that. It should just be a capture. You're trying to pause the clock, and you can take that time to hopefully make the CSA over dedicate their forces on the point, so you can have another force move elsewhere. Because if you have, because they need to outnumber you to capture the point, right? So even if you have one skirmish order line out here, that's what, in high pot, that's 80 or so people. They need to have 80 people to match that. And as they're working on matching you, you can open up movements other directions. Maybe you can go up the left flank with another infantry company in the sharps and start contesting over here, giving CSA more things to worry about. But the early cap is mostly a decision that's going to save you time, and it's going to have to make the CSA move and think more. So what you should be learning through all this as Union and CSA is that although the left flank approach is the best approach for Union, it is not easy. The CSA has so many spots, and really good spots, where they can defend you from. So even if you push the CSA off this hill, which I don't recommend the CSA be for the reasons I mentioned earlier, they're not going to let you get up this flank if they're a good team. If they're a good team, they're going to stop you. They're going to shoot the shit out of you. They're going to have artillery guns up here, and the only mitigation to that is going to be the skirmish order, like so. And if it's getting too hot, maybe you can send sharps some other direction to try to just draw firepower away from the infantry, because infantry is what's going to win the game in terms of manpower. Sharps is going to help the infantry win the game by taking heat off the infantry, right? Because sharps have quick and accurate rifles. So if you're a sharp CO and you notice that there's a lot of firepower being poured onto the infantry, start thinking about ways you can help your infantry elsewhere. What do you do then now as Union? Well, there's one thing you can do. If you know CSA is going to be using this main defilade as they should be, you still have Battery Matthews. So for Battery Matthews, if you want to hit the top of that CSA hill or behind it, your fuse is going to be 265 yards. Your elevation is going to be 0.0 degrees, 0.80 degrees. And if you're using that, it should look something like this. So the air burst, again, CSA is going to be making their lines something like this all across this field. So this is more of the front, but they're also going to utilize the back, definitely the backside. So the 365 yards, right? And this is kind of what the angle is, perpendicular. That's 365 yards. This is going to be around 360, 355, and so on. So keep that in mind, right? If you want to hit more towards the top where you think the CSA is firing, maybe lower the fuse by 10 yards. Coordinate with your infantry. Help them. Try to make them help you get good shots. Always coordinate with your infantry for this. So even if the CSA is taking this hill, the Union has Battery Matthews, which have 3 PARROT guns with a lot of ammo. Sometimes CSA will station themselves on these rocks on the right of point. So points, this is like point right here, right? Points right here. There's these rocks on the right side of point. You can hit those as Union artillery too. If you see, if CSA, I mean, if Union infantry is telling artillery that there's people over here, it's a very, very easy shot. This is the lineup. So as you can see, there's this kind of increase in height right here of the cornfield. Right here. So you're aiming at the right side of that on the lower part of it where it starts to go low. You want to set your elevation for 0.55. So let's write that down. Range 310. And if you do that, range 310, you're going to be able to hit those rocks with something that looks like this. Oh, like so. That's what's going to look like. You're getting the backside of those rocks, and the CSA people that are sitting there are going to have a really bad day. So if you're an attacker or you're the defender on this map, what you should be taking away from this is, if you're the defender, ideally you want to deny Union access past these lines. Union should not have any business being past these lines at all. If you're Union, your goal should be to have effective time management, coordinate with artillery, and strive to access this defilade over here where this CSA company is. If you can access this defilade over here, you're going to have a good chance of winning the game. If you can't, you have alternatives. You can coordinate with artillery, you can early cap points, try to get the CSA moving so you can move around them or make them do something that might be a mistake. There's things Union can do to win this map, but it's also a very, very good map to defend on if you're CSA. So don't be confused and don't be concerned by the ticket advantage for Union. It's not that big. 19% can disappear really quickly against a good CSA team. To recap though, Union, avoid being isolated. You need to stay together as a team. Same for CSA. If you're in the beginning of the map, CSA, and you have units that are doing the newer strat where you have units up here, and you're that unit doing it, and the rest of the team's not aware of it, and they might be back here, don't do it. Stay with your team. If you get isolated as a defender, well, you lose your four flag advantage, and the Union can start wreaking havoc then, because now it's pretty even. It's three flags versus 3 flags, and one of those flags is a pretty good sharpshooter company. So things get really messy at that point. Stay together, focus on forming a long conjoined line if you're attacking or defending, and heavily coordinate with artillery. This has been the Hooker's Push map guide. If I missed anything, let me know. And if you guys want to see any other map very soon, let me know. I plan on going in order. There's some maps I might skip because, quite frankly, some maps are just lost causes for a defender at some points. But my goal is to eventually get to every map. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, guys.